All yours, and then.
Okay, thank you, Rashmiji. Would you like to just say a few words about IIW before we begin?
Okay, very warm welcome to all, one and all here. This is a very sensitive topic which we are taking up today, because we aim to be the voice of all those who have been suffering in the new conflict. And if we always see that women are the worst sufferers in war zone. Let me tell you something about our organization, just a few minutes, about Inspiring Indian Women. So Inspiring Indian Women has been existence, it has been in UK since last 6 years, and it is a platform which helps women promote themselves, share inspiring stories, to inspire each other, to promote the entrepreneurs, to have a bigger, better market, and to help everybody move towards the journey of self-reliance. It also aims to create awareness to any specific women-related issues all over the world. And we aim to strive to bring forth the suffering of the Indian women specifically, and change the attitude of Indian men towards women. So we've got loads and loads of objectives actually, but today is the day to talk about women who are suffering in the war-torn country, in the new political setup today, the Afghans, specifically in Afghanistan. May I now go to Lakshmi, the host for today, who would take it further. And I would just like to say that we have our guest here. I would like to introduce Umesh Agarwal ji, who's been the base of this entire initiative. And then we also have Nilesh Joshi ji from SanataniShakti.com, and we have Lakshmi Kaul also coming, who will be representing Kashmiri women. And may we now hand over to Lakshmi Sivalanka to take over from me. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you, Rashmi, for that great introduction to IIW, and for all of you for being here, to our audience for joining us to highlight this incredibly heartbreaking situation that we are faced with in Afghanistan. We have a wonderful panel with us, joining us from mainly the US, but also here in the UK, and as well as in Europe. So thank you to our wonderful panelists, and I'm going to basically just hand over to each one of you to introduce yourselves and give us a little bit of a background as to your involvement and what has brought you here today to represent the voice of the Afghan people. So first and foremost, in no particular order, if I can hand over to Tatiana. Welcome, Tatiana.
Thank you so much, Rashmiji and Lakshmiji, for having us here. So my name is Tatiana Sadian. I work with actually a climate activism group called Extinction Rebellion in the UK, specifically a group called Money Rebellion. And I have been, I suppose, got into everything that's been happening because I was on Clubhouse and I host a lot of rooms. And we hosted a room several weeks back about what's going on and what the impact would be of the US withdrawal in Afghanistan. And so we frittered away our collective knowledge in an embarrassing 45 minutes. And then amazingly, like, all these Afghan people came into the room and educated us. And for 14 hours told their stories, like 400 people on stage at one point, or like in the room at one point. And it was so just evocative and inspired my empathy. So ever since then, I've just been working on how I can support in just any way that is available to me, uplifting voices that apparently, like, a lot of media around the world seems to be trying to quash, including here in the US, and how to get the real story of what's happening on the ground out to people, and how to get the international community to mobilize on behalf of our fellow human beings. Because this is not a political issue like our governments are trying to make it, it is a humanitarian issue. And we are all brothers and sisters in this. So that's essentially what I'm working on right now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tatiana G. That's a really important distinction that you've made there, and one that I think we just all need to hit home. This is a humanitarian issue, not a political one. Angela, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you guys, first of all, for having us here and giving the voiceless in Afghanistan a voice. And we're all representing all those people here right now. My name is Angela Draper. I was born in Afghanistan. I grew up in Germany. I was one of the fortunate immigrants and refugees back then. With my grandparents left Afghanistan with my parents, where we had the opportunity to go and seek refuge in Germany and be educated. I studied industrial engineering in Germany, and then ultimately moved to United States in 2007. Just recently started my own manufacturing company, and I'm a huge environmental activist, as well as now also human rights activist. The way I got involved in the whole Afghanistan issue, Afghanistan has always been in my heart, and my family and my ancestors have always served, including right now, just before the Taliban took over, my family has been serving the Afghan government. So I've always been involved with actively or passively in what's been happening in Afghanistan. I could have never imagined that this history is going to repeat itself in Afghanistan, and as a lot of Afghan people are shocked about all this, as well as a lot of international community and people. And I can't avoid but repeating what Tatiana also said, is that this is, in my opinion, not just an Afghan issue, an Afghan problem. The Taliban and terrorism takeover of Afghanistan is a world problem, is a humanitarian crisis. And if we don't get together as people, as free people with our own voices, as fortunate people, and fight for this cause and fight for freedom of Afghanistan and fight against terrorism, then who would? So that's why I'm here, and I'm working with a great group of amazing ladies and gentlemen in helping evacuate some of the Afghan allies from Afghanistan, as well as help them with gathering and helping fundraisings for the different organizations in feeding the affected Afghans and women and children in Afghanistan that are suffering right now as a result of all these politics and the issues in Afghanistan.
Thank you, Angela, and we really look forward to hearing some of those stories that you touched on, and your relief efforts, and the amazing news that you've got today from the government. Zinat, can I hand over to you to introduce yourself? Zinat.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me be part of this. My name is Zinat Drown. I was born in Afghanistan, but left the country around age 5 years old and became a refugee in Pakistan, and then was resettled here in America. So I'm the CEO and founder of a Greater Change International nonprofit. We primarily focus on women and children that are, oppressed on and all of that. And that is something my heart is very passionate about. It doesn't matter culture, color, skin, whatever, as long as it's women and children being oppressed, or when there's cruelty against human beings, we must stand up and raise our voice. And the situation in Afghanistan is absolutely heartbreaking right now. Our team is effortlessly working around the clock to get people out of there. We have food distribution on the ground with the displaced people. The city that I was born, Kunduz, it was literally set on fire. And yeah, so I'm going to do whatever I can to get this, get as many people I can help. And then the rest will be as it comes one by one. So.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, for taking the time out, because you guys just sound like you're constantly on the go with this work, and it's a lot. You've taken on this incredible work that your conscience has moved you to do, and so really appreciate your time for being here. We have a couple more panel members that are yet to join. I think they might be having some technical problems, but I'll introduce them as they come on. Okay, well, just first of all, for for some background, if can someone just bring us up to date. How did it come to this, that the Taliban have taken over a country? How in this day and age, how was something like this possible? Can you just summarize the events that led to this coup d'etat?
Well, what were you asking me to do that? Sorry.
Anyone can say it.
Sure.
If I may, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I personally would call this a coup d'etat. With all the political events have been happening, I don't know how many people out there have followed what's been happening in the past years or decades in Afghanistan. What's happening today is a result of deliberate planning, and as well as a lot of combination of intermingling in Afghan politics and with Afghan people and Afghan people being used. Now, I hate to blame, and I want to emphasize that I hate to blame others for our own conflicts within Afghanistan that we had in the past. Afghanistan is a very tribal country consisting of a variety of different minority groups due to our geographic location and where we are, in Asia, where we're located. I mean, as most of you probably know, the influence of Alexander the Great and the Mughal Empire, as well as all the big powers, was the British Army, or what was the Russians, and what is the United States, have continuously had a role in instability in Afghanistan. So with that being said, I will just go only back to the Cold War and the Russians, and when the Russians were in Afghanistan or had influence in Afghan government, because of our powers here, the Western society or in the Western world, were afraid of the Russians taking over that part of the region, and ultimately, because it's such a buffer in that region and dividing, the nuclear powers right now, and China and Iran and India and with Pakistan and India as well from Afghanistan. It was strategically important for United States to be present in that area, and obviously we couldn't afford to have Russians there, right? So with that United States presence, the Mujahideen, group of Mujahideen, were built on the grounds and soils of Pakistan. And again, this is my knowledge, and understanding of politics. You guys are free, whoever is listening to this is free to go and fact check for themselves, but that's my understanding. So the Pakistan Soul and Pakistani government was being funded by Emirates and by Saudis and by United States, and creating groups and training those groups of militants to fight against Russians. Now, these were a lot of Afghan refugees, Afghan children that out of hunger and out of desperateness for their own country, they've joined these forces and tried to fight in what they call the Holy War at that time, to get rid of the Russians' influence in Afghanistan. So they were brought up to do just that. And then the groups of Mujahideen that came and destabilized the government that was back then in charge, which was the Najibullah as a president, they have destabilized that government and took over Afghanistan with the help of United States and ISI, Pakistan. That's since they were divided groups. There were 7, I believe, Tatiana, was it 7 or 8? 7 different groups of militants of different tribes of Afghanistan that could never come together and unite. And that's when the Taliban rise was boiling, because the Taliban here, again, being on the soils of Pakistan with the help, funding of Saudi and United States, the Taliban rose. Now, what is a Taliban? As we all know, the Talibs are kids of war and desperate refugees and people that are hungry, that had no means of feeding their children, trying to send their children to madrasas where they were supposed to be fed and taken care of and given an education that these poor people and refugees otherwise couldn't afford. So these poor parents thought they're sending their children to be educated and fed while they were being raised and brainwashed by radical Wahhabism. I wouldn't even call it Islamism. I'll call it Wahhabism, because it's a very particular way of Islam and Sharia law that they're taught. And unfortunately, those kids were grown up to be brainwashed to think that everyone else but their religion was the wrong one, and they were fighting a holy war. And that turned into a whole group of terrorism, taking advantage of these kids and militarizing them for their own purposes and agendas.
And that's how Taliban came to become, right? And first time when they destabilized Afghanistan, we didn't do about all this for the longest time in the Western world until it became an issue to us. And what I still don't know, would like to ask the Western world is, we found Osama bin Laden on the other side of the border. We found them with the help of ISI and Abbottabad. I still don't understand why we invaded Afghanistan and why we sent Taliban and unleashed them on Afghanistan. And then destabilization obviously creates more and more war. And now we're in this mess, and Afghan people have been suffering for the past 4 decades because of all this. I hope that summed up a little bit as to where Taliban came from. And even to this day and age, ISI and ISI presence, including their head of security, Faiz Hamid, being in Afghanistan, deciding who is going to be in the cabinet and talking and counseling them. I mean, it should be clear to the world what's going on and who is in charge of running the Taliban and telling them what to do. This is not Afghan people. Majority of Afghan people, including myself, who's a Pashtun representative here in this panel, as well as Zina John, we all agree that we want our people to be free. We don't want religion to be shoved down our throat. Neither do we want some men-dominated group of terrorists to come after they were released after years of imprisonment to rule our country, because, that's not how a country or a nation is built. We don't believe in that. And that's why there's so many protests by real Afghans within Afghanistan right now, as well as outside Afghanistan, fighting for this, fighting for our freedom, for our people's freedom. Thank you.
Might I just, oh, sorry. I just wanted to add something really quickly, if I may. Just to the point that I understand that most people see the terrorists as like Muslim Islamic terrorists, and I just really personally reject that typification, because this is not about religion. Like, the Quran does not say this. They're totalitarian, they're terrorists that exploit a holy book as justification for their brutality. But, I mean, we don't blame Christians for Nazism, right? And I just want to be really careful, because I think some people are using, unfortunately, like, Afghanistan has been a proxy state physically, and some people are using the sacredness of Afghan people's pain in this moment as a proxy argument to justify their own Islamophobia in other places. And I just want to be really clear to parse the idea of these terrorists and Islam, because like that's what some elements would love to do, right? Is every time they would love it for people in the world, every time they think of the word Muslim, to think of the face of a Taliban. They are not Muslims. Anybody who kills in the name of any holy book, is, in the name of God no less, is truly not an adherent of the religion. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. That's a really important distinction that you've made there. And Anjali, you brought up so many, you touched on so many issues in what you spoke about. What occurs to me is that these issues, unless you're in it, it's something, it can be quite new for us hearing this, and it's a real education for us to listen to the trajectory as things have played out over the decades. And
I just want to interrupt you, sorry. There is this message sent to me directly saying namaste bitches. There is no need for that. It's Daddy harder. If that's the tone of this conversation, I'm afraid I will leave the space.
Okay, I'm just going to carry on with hosting this, because we're here with a group of panelists and we're giving them the voice to communicate their experience, and so we'll just carry on with that. Thank you. If there are any questions, can I ask that they're conveyed at the end of this, so that there are minimal interruptions and we can give full voice to our panel members. So it seemed as if the Western media was all over this when this happened. Now, it was on the 15th of September, I believe. 15th of August. So it was three weeks ago this happened. So now it's like one has to really, search for information, and even so, it's been I feel like there's a lot of filters being placed on information. I'm hearing, some horrific stories from just our WhatsApp group, about how women are being tortured, how they're being separated from their children, how there's violence, and this information is not coming through in in mainstream media. Sorry, do you think that's a deliberate attempt to suppress information? Is it a means of being seen as diplomatic? What's going on here? This is
I would like to answer that. Since and if that's okay with everybody, I would like to answer that question. Anyways, the first 3 days when this whole chaos was happening in Kabul, the news outlets such as CNN, MSNBC, none of them were focusing and using the word humanitarian crisis and emergency evacuation. While we were on the front line figuring out how to get people out of there, innocent women and children, right? The news outlet was not covering that up. And I'll tell you why. Because it was not meeting the narrative of the current administration. And that makes me, that just boils my blood. On the third day, Fox News started talking about it. This is not about political party and which party you're on. This is about human beings' life, other direction, and pretending that there's nothing going on in Afghanistan. And wow, what an amazing thing, the Taliban 2.0, when these guys are beating women in the gates in the south side of Kabul airport. I witnessed this myself because I was walking through this with a girl we were trying to get out of there. Now, we have a president in the White House who would like to say this was a successful evacuation, quote unquote. It wasn't. It was a chaos. And then if anybody wants to sit there and say, well, Trump administration did this, they made the deal with the Taliban, they're the one who's in charge of this, and let's blame Bush, or let's blame George W. Bush, like the senior Bush. All of that is incredibly irresponsible of us as accountability, as someone holding people accountable for their actions. Right now, I have one commander-in-chief in the White House, and his name is Joe Biden. And when you ask our vice president,
can I ask everyone to mute themselves if you're not speaking, please? Thank you.
And I don't want to, and so we have the first female vice president. Asking her about Afghanistan, she giggled her way out of it. Why? What is so funny? To me, that is incredibly disrespectful. But then here's the other thing. We got these 6 airplanes sitting in Mazar Sharif right now. We got families that immediately would be executed if we don't get them out of these places, right? We got the State Department blocking it. Why? When normally when a humanitarian work happens, we, as a humanitarian, when there's a disaster, the humanitarian steps in. The State Department, the president, the commander-in-chief, they're the one who help. They try to assist the nonprofits to get this, make the work easier for them, not the other way around where you have political pond. We're dancing around in the past 5 days. Imagine being these families. One of them literally got on the phone with me and said, tell these people to have mercy on our souls. We're gonna die here. So we were under the impression that we had a president who was the defender of women, the defender of the LGBT community, a president who had things to say about the George Floyd situation. And now that president is actually, in his administration, is sugarcoating this chaos in Afghanistan. And Afghanistan has been the land of orphans that everyone likes to just kick at. And that makes me more angry than anything else. And I will fight for that. I will continue to raise my voice at that. We had Pakistan bombing the valley of Panjshir. Why isn't CNN outraged? Why aren't they talking about this? Because it doesn't meet the narrative of the current administration.
That's quite tragic to hear as Western democracy. Who would have imagined that that would be the case? Is this whitewashing? I mean, what is the is it just the bureaucracy, the red tape around, you know, getting help, getting assistance to people in need in this humanitarian crisis? It doesn't meet their narrative. Why is that? Why is that people suffering in, you know, in our world doesn't meet the narrative of a Western democracy?
May I come in on this one? I have someone else, unless someone else wants to. I don't want to also be taking up too much space. But just to say very quickly, I think what happened here, as Angela Jan beautifully referred to earlier, is that it was not a Taliban takeover, right? It was an American handover. America, in the Doha Agreement on February 29th, 2020, that they negotiated with the Taliban, and Afghanistan was not even at the table in a negotiation session about their own country. So the US is openly working with the Taliban now. And while they still kind of try to add some like level of plausible deniability to it, I mean, there's no way to get away with that at this point. And there is a theory, and I don't want to give, there's a theory that this has to do with a global power shift, that the US has essentially decided that Afghanistan is not as useful to ally with for its own aims than the Taliban itself. And that has to do with, you know, the Taliban essentially keeping, you know, the northern states, like the states north, because like terrorism doesn't respect borders, right? And this is why this is a fundamental issue for everybody in the region. This is not just Afghanistan's problem. We've already seen bombing starting elsewhere. But essentially, you know, the Taliban can keep, because they will spread, you know, Russia engaged with invading Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. There will definitely be conflicts with Iran on the west because of the different, you know, sects of Islam they belong to. They're probably going to spill over into Pakistan as well. We've already seen bombings in Pakistan last week. And that has to do with tensions within the Taliban, because the Taliban is not a monolith, right? There are these ragtag like tribes and groups that have put together these Pakistani madrasas. So there are sects of them that they're already having friction with one another. How they're supposed to govern a state, I mean, really, that anyone could even think of legitimizing them is out of the question. But yeah, so it'll also be spilling over into Pakistan, as we've already seen, and even potentially into China's Xinjiang province, because they're much more ideologically motivated than financially motivated, which is not something the US is used to dealing with, I would dare say. And they have a sense of solidarity with the Uyghurs there. So this is going to destabilize so much more than just Afghanistan. And so I think that's where it fits into US strategy. That's why they're trying in at least like the US media, I don't know what is elsewhere in the world, they're trying to say things like, oh, like, but the Afghans, like, they didn't fight, and how could we help fight for a country that didn't fight for itself? They hadn't been reinforced with supplies or ammunition. They didn't have bullets. You know, this was with direct coordination from inside the government. The commanders were telling them to stand down, or the soldiers would get shot in the head if they didn't put down their guns for the Taliban. Like, this is what was happening on the ground. This is what you're not reading in the media. So yeah, is it purposeful? Absolutely. The US is trying to engage in reputational, you know, protection. And so the reason also for this global power shift, a theory, is that this destabilization has to do with America's desire to maintain sort of superpower ascendancy in the world, because China is building the One Belt, One Road initiative. It's the biggest infrastructure project in the history of humanity. They've already committed $4 trillion to it. And they want to build it through Pakistan and Afghanistan, et cetera, along the old Silk Road. America doesn't want that much Chinese influence over the region. And so America also, along with other NATO countries, has, or like allied countries, has its own like version of this called the Blue Dot Network that just got agreed to last year. But the Chinese are definitely ahead of the game on this. So the theory stands that the Americans want to destabilize the region because you can't build infrastructure in the middle of a war zone.
Well, thank you,
I agree
Tatiana.
with you 100%.
Educational background and quite enlightening, but and really important awareness raising actually for those of us who simply are unaware. Angela, did you want to add something to that?
I just wanted to agree with everything Tatiana just said. It's about, you know, using Afghanistan for a bigger agenda that's been deliberately. And I want to emphasize again, I don't think this is a coincidence. I don't think this is just a mistake that they want to make it look like. This administration has bigger plans, and it's not just about Afghanistan. It's about destabilizing the whole region. Now, the danger in this is that people need to know and understand and think about, and that's why we all are in this, and we all need to take action, is because we are destabilizing a region. The Afghanistan is a buffer between nuclear powers. There's Iran, and my biggest fear is that this is just being used to create a bigger issue between Pakistan and Iran and India. And that's when the entire Asia is involved. And that's why China is so interested in not only in the resources in Afghanistan, the natural resources and lithium that has just been recently discovered. And I don't know how much of you know, but lithium is crucial in building the new batteries and electric cars, etc. So there's a ton of lithium that's been discovered in Afghanistan, aside from the gemstones and other natural resources we have, which is why countries like China is interested, as well as their geographic location. Obviously, they're worried about destabilization and war in Asia, in Central Asia. In this is, again, it's all our problem, and it is much bigger and is much more dangerous than just a mistake of few terrorists taking over that we can eliminate soon. It's not that easy, and if we as a Western world, United Nations, don't act on this as soon as possible, not only Afghan people and women will suffer, not only the 14.2 women in Afghanistan, million women in Afghanistan, and children will die and suffer, but the whole Asia, if not the whole world, will be affected. We're creating a new terrorist hub that will trickle to us. It will get to us at some point if we don't act fast.
A real call to action there, Angela. Yeah, to the world, to everyone, from leaders down to those on the ground, to do grassroots.
And I would like to add, just to echo with what she just said, is also the UN looking the other direction. We have food supplies and everything cut off, everything that you can think of that a person would on a daily basis survive and eat is cut off in the Panjshir Valley right now. And the UN has not held the Taliban accountable for their atrocity against a person, a divine right to survive and live and eat. And normally humanitarians are allowed to go in a conflicted zone, and they're allowed to go in without picking sides, but really helping the women and children. We have not been able to get any sort of help to the women and children in the valley of Panjshir while they are living in absolute nightmare in the middle of this bullets flying each direction. At the same time, they are saying we are changed. You have powerful images of Kabul protests coming out, and women are standing there, just a defenseless women, while a Taliban is holding a gun that is an American gun in the face of a defenseless woman. That is something that will never make it to CNN. That is something that the current administration will never talk about it. And that hurts the most, because we should be able to talk, and we should be able to say there's human rights violation. And what is the difference? What is really the difference between what Joe Biden did to America and what, Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd? What is the difference? That's something I would like to ask him. And why was it that half of America was set on fire for that? And all of a sudden we have Hollywood justice warriors, complete silence, while women and children. I got a call from one woman in Afghanistan. 3 of her daughters drank rat poisons to kill themselves because they were going inside Kunduz. So when you have 5,000 prisoners, Taliban, released on the behalf of this negotiation with the Taliban requested by the Americans to release these troops and let them go into, part of this negotiation. What do you think that 5,000 pissed off prisoners are doing? They have been released after
And
10
give them
years.
$85 billion worth of high-tech weapons too, right?
Yeah, so they pick a weapon. It's the definition of retaliation. Then they go into these villages where I was born, where I was a little girl, and they go knock on doors, picking up girls as young as 10 years old and calling them the spoils of war. Well, where is Alyssa Milano? I would like to know. Where is all the people who got so passionate and justice warriors when it came to any sort of police brutality or the Derek Chauvin situation? And our president talked about how the knee of injustice, systematic injustice, racism will be in the neck of the justice system in America. But I say to you, that his injustice knee will be in the back of every Afghan girl's neck for eternity to come.
Powerful testimony, Zinat, and just words fail me.
I would like to add my comment as well.
Please.
Yeah, my name is Fawzia Rauf. I would like to highlight the women issue here because that's what we were here to discuss women at first place. I'm of Bacha Khan ideology, who says if you want to see how civilized a culture is, look at how they treat its women. Unfortunately, in many cultures, women has been treated unjust. And a khudai khidmatkar is, you can call it like you give service for free. So that's what I'm doing because I believe in Bacha Khan non-violence ideology. Last night, 4 of the families that I help and work with some Australian journalists whose name I don't want to mention, they will be leaving Afghanistan. And also basis on this P1, priority 1 designation under the US refugee admission program. They are processing eligible Afghan who are at risk of persecution and violence. So I'm working for their resettlement here in US and working with the Congressman Don Bacon and other local authority. I on and off go on media. It's just sad that what's going on, whoever was behind it, whether it's the super duper power or it's our neighbor. The core question is the women who are there suffering. Last night, I was awake all night helping one social media activist. His wife was pregnant, and he also, made a video saying to Taliban, if there is no this forgiveness for everyone, because the sort of treatment that's coming from the video that we are seeing, the Talibans are brutally beating and killing men. So he said, tell me, I don't want to be humiliated that way, so I can end my life. And last night I was talking to him, and his wife was pregnant, and I told him if you can make a video call or call the women to be there, and I can help and assist in this delivery. So that was one of the reasons I'm kind of a little bit having a sleepless night, because I was working with the sisters and brothers in Afghanistan with their applications, and also my experience when I was in Afghanistan working as a doctor. And at that time, I was also a khudai khidmatkar. I've never worked for any NGO organization and never took any money. Right now, many of my family are helping the extractions of SIV-P2. They told me to go to, Albuquerque, Mexico, and El Paso, Texas, or Virginia to help the new refugee settlement. But I'm still busy in my own very unique way of helping my brothers and sisters in Afghanistan. And yeah, when I was in Afghanistan, even under the previous administration, I've been to Herat, I've been to this place called Jawari, where mostly of our Shia community is living. And I work in Maula Ali Hospital, Kabul, which is also again a hospital serving Shia community. So I'm very close with them. And there I saw women, you know, going through a C-section without getting an anesthesia. That is the kind of pain I saw women endure and they go through. And it was very torturing for me, because in the first world, when I see us in hospitals and women getting what they're getting, I'm happy for them, good for them. But let's make it a women issue. Let's make it the issue of our brother who are suffering, because in Afghanistan, a man is who provides. He when the man is born, he carry a big baggage, the baggage to support family, the baggage if the father died at age from eight and 9, he start working, doing labor and supporting the entire family. So if a man die or if anything happened to the women, indirectly or directly, women suffered. Our women's are strong, our men's are strong. We shall pass, this shall pass through. And I'm hoping that with your help and all the sisters who join us, don't make it political. Don't make it the Musharraf treatment, who made who and who brought who. Let's be together and let's be together in how well we can be a voice for our women who might be going through labor pain right now. They might not have, any sort of anesthesia or pain medication. So it's not only in Afghanistan. When I was been training in Lahore, Pakistan, and also in Peshawar, when sometimes we would run short of the local anesthesia while giving episiotomy, we will cut the women when the pain would come to them. Such are the realities of our society. Such are the circumstances that women are going through. It's not only in Afghanistan, it's our entire region, whether it's India, Balochistan, Sindh, Punjab, Peshawar, or Kabul, or entire Afghanistan. So I'm happy to be here. Kindly confine the topic to women and the men who, of course, who are a part of this discussion too, if directly or indirectly, their discussion affect women, their decision affect women. And that's all what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Fuzia.
Yeah.
I
would like to respond to that, by the way, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Is that
Sana.
okay? Okay. I respect everything you just said here, and I appreciate you coming on this call and making time for this. And I appreciate all the work you're doing. I myself have worked in Iraq with girls that were sex slaves from ISIS, Yezidi girls specifically. Every one of their stories will stay with me forever. It's called secondary trauma. But until we hold those accountable to what they have done, I don't ever want to make my work political. I don't ever want to do that. I want to take those 6 planes out and get people out of Mazar Sharif. But for the past 5 days, we've been dancing in a circle in a political pond. And until we bring that on the table, nothing will be solved. Women are, yes, around the world has suffered, has been mutilated and have been burned, have been poured acid on. But right now we're talking about the women that will be living under the reign of Taliban, and we cannot just bypass that and say this is a women's issue. Yes, it is. I agree with you 100%. But it became women's issue because someone sentenced them to death. Somebody said, you're gonna be married to a Taliban. You will be under their reign. You will have no rights, a divine human rights. but it is not our problem. And those need to be held accountable in the international law, and they need to be held accountable when it comes to election time. They need to be held accountable in front of congressional representative and a Senate floor in Washington, D.C. And I will do everything I can to ask, as I'm Afghan American, to ask, where did my leaders go wrong that we give that many population of Afghanistan in the hand of Taliban, and we just look the other direction because we thought we were better than that? And then when is the international community will hold Pakistan accountable for their actual activity of supporting terrorism and doing atrocity against girls and women? And until we don't talk about that, we're going to get nowhere. We'll just give sad stories and sad stories of what happened to who, and I got it, believe me. I got it. I'm probably the first person you will meet who has a folder on her laptop that says human remains. So I've been there, done that. But who are we holding accountable? Because when the accountability comes, that's when the progress will be made. And thank you.
Thanks
I'm
for that.
absolutely with you, Sina Jan. Absolutely with you. We have to keep holding people accountable. We have to take action. That's why we're here, right? We're not just voicing what's going on in Afghanistan, but we're talking about how can we avoid this? How can we mitigate this? How can we change this? So we're all in it together. I'm just also, I can't help but repeat what you were just saying. Where are these ladies in the world in the leadership positions? Why is Kamala Harris making fun of 14.2 million women suffering right now, being imprisoned, raped, forced married, their jobs being taken away? These are women that don't have a man that provides for them. They can't feed their children. They end up selling their children. This is the reality of Afghan women. They end up selling their children so they can survive and feed others and other children. And where is Nancy Pelosi in this? Where is Kamala Harris in this? Where is the Hollywood group and gang, the #MeToo movement in this? And quite frankly, my Indian sisters, our little girls, Afghans, including myself, grew up watching and cheering for your Bollywood ladies. Where is Madhuri Dixit? Where is Amitabh Bachchan and his family? Where is Ashura Rai? Where are all these Miss Universes we have idolized as little girls? Where are you all? Why are you all quiet? We have to stand up. We have to raise our voice. We have to take and call people out. We can't just sit there being neutral. Neutrality hasn't changed anything. We can't help people by being neutral. We need to tell the truth. We need to open our mouth. We need to be truthful and bold about this, or nothing will happen. I don't know what the #MeToo was that the whole world was moving, including Europe and the United Nations, Hollywood, Bollywood, you name it. None of these people are speaking right now. Mothers, they're all mothers. They're all wives. They're all sisters and daughters. Where are they? Please ask them.
Thank you, Angela. I mean, I can say that it was important for me to hear that, to hear the background to this, to create a macro level picture of what's been going on, for the background, for the history. It was quite a history lesson, and to know what's going on the ground, which, as we're seeing, the media's filtering out and whitewashing. Without that information, we're blind, and so I for one appreciate everything that you have all contributed and voiced so far. So please let's continue, and every single one of your input is invaluable to this process, and without hearing these stories, we are none the wiser, and we won't know how to change, how to invoke change, and how to talk to each other, how to talk to our neighbors, our communities, our brethren, our sisterhood, around the world, and put pressure on our political parties in our countries to make change. This is how we do it, by creating awareness, and this, for me, has been hugely awareness raising tonight so far already. moving to what's going on, on the ground. What is life like? I mean, we're hearing these horrendous stories from this group here tonight that we're not hearing in the media. What is life like for an average woman today in Afghanistan? All the work that's been done in these last 2 decades, it feels like it's just disappeared overnight, and it's painful just to think about that fact. And can you describe you are in touch with these our sisters, our 14.2 million sisters in Afghanistan, a number that just is unfathomable. Can you give as a picture of what it's going to be like now under this regime for these women?
Well, yeah, we go back to that one image that arrived back in 2000, where a woman were being shot in the back of her head in a football field. They have already executed people in the villages around the south area. Kabul is a disaster. The only reason that there's a little bit of protest going on is because the Ahmad Massoud had sent out a voice message and saying, it doesn't matter in what corner of the world you're in, raise your voice against cruelty, raise your voice against zalimi, which is the same word in Hindi that it is in Farsi. The Taliban has not changed. The banks are shut down and just opened I think a day or two ago, but you only have minimum amount of $200 that you can take out of the banks. It is a chaos. They have not formed a government. They cannot control the crowd, and people are scared for their future. Journalists has been taken. This morning, I woke up with a photo of 2 women being shot right on the spot in Badakhshan for protesting. And you can see them laying on the ground. Journalists are being beaten for doing something that the Taliban specifically said, we will have freedom of press. Freedom. The word freedom is absolutely a fiction to the dictionary of the Taliban. And that being said, they are trying to get international recognition, but they can't even physically stop themselves from demonstrating hatred, racism, and brutality against just a normal civilian. Like this guy, a Hazara minority group, they beat him so badly to the point there were blood coming out of his ears. And then you hear the clicking of the gun and the video shuts off. And we find out later he was dead. He wasn't even an Afghani. He was an Afghani Australian. People, they keep saying to the women, you can't come outside for your own safety. When there were questions asked about these girls being taken out of their home as spoil of war, right? Then the Taliban says, that's not us, that's ISIS. Well, if you guys are so good, why is ISIS activated in your country then? That's another thing. And then humanitarian work has been completely shut off. The country is going to face the worst economic crisis ever when everything is, and now the other thing about the Taliban are they're well equipped. They are well trained and equipped. And where were they hiding all these years? 20 years. Where were they hiding? And the other one last thing is like, they go on these house search in the middle of the night and just imagine you're in your house sleeping, right? And someone just comes in, a group of armed men, and starts knocking on your door, and then house searches randomly and beats people up, take their personal belongings, take girls. That's the life in Afghanistan right now. And most of the people are still trying to fathom with what just happened, what's going on. And there are Americans there that needs to get out. Yeah, they may not been born in America, but they have American passports. They're considered America. And it is our problem to go back and get them. But to the girls in Afghanistan, and if any of them can hear this, as of yesterday, I knew that the Taliban has shut down news outlet because they didn't want anyone else to go out there and join the protest against the Taliban into the Northern Alliance support Ahmad Massoud. Some people would call me and say, hey, what is going on in Panjshir? Because everything is shut off. To the girls, if they can hear this, I will never give up on you. This is far from over, because he who throws the first punch loses the right to determine when the fight is over. And this has just begun.
Well, thank
You're
you.
giving me goosebumps, Zina John. Thank you.
Yeah, it was such a nice thing, as you said, how that's gonna affect women, whether it's Panjshir or in entire Afghanistan. As I said, the Dr. Gabermate, who always advocate and talk about the trauma that we inherit, the trauma that women give it to our future generation. I wouldn't say that's their future, our future generation. Because when you are not only the women on ground who are pregnant right now or going through labor, or the children who are just born and is witnessing all the atrocities. Because if you see this, it says that what affects our evolution, apart from the genetic influence, there is an environmental factor too, which does add into making a person. So it's very sad and it's very unfortunate that not only women in Afghanistan are witnessing that, but anyone right now talking, engaging, or listening to the conversation or watching the video that are out there in public on social media will transmit the trauma to the future generation, the human generation, because that's the environment we are living globally. In Hindi, we say, Vasudeva Kutumbakum, world is one family. Today, as a family, we're witnessing the injustice that's happening in one corner of the world, whether it's being a woman or a child or any ethnicity who are suffering. It's affecting the rest of us. It's affecting the first world too. And there was a very viral picture of an American journalist, or it was a European journalist, who was taking the picture of a vulture waiting for a kids to die so he can eat that. And later on, that woman died by just experiencing and seeing what she has seen in Africa. So it will affect us. It will affect each and every person, whether it's been our neighbor country, India, whether it's the rest of the world. Yes, I did exposed to the trauma that has been inflicted on the Yezidi women, because I met a few of them through my friends, Amy in my state, Suzanne, and I was really embarrassed and ashamed as a Muslim to go and meet her. I didn't have the courage. And she had, the trauma, the torture that she went through. She was reluctant to see me because she was seeing in me the same rapist who raped her. So it does affect me as a person. It does affect me as an Afghan, or it does affect me as an ex-Muslim community girl. So it's just very sad what we are seeing, what we are observing. And if we think that's a regional issue or it's Afghanistan issue, it's not. Because if world isn't family, we all are in it. It's our family and they are one of us. So we must do, the least we can do is gather here. I'm sure after this discussion is over and before that, many of us were engaged in different form to extend our gratitude and hand. And also regarding Ahmad Masood brother, I really admire his courage. I really admire his patience and perseverance. I've been consistently going out and raising as much as I can, the awareness, some funding for the people. And I wish the world can let us go so I can be a part of that community and the wounded who are there, which is my right as an Afghan or as a human, and their right as a human to get the first aid, paramedics, because a lot of women from Panjshir was willing, who are nurses and doctors here, to go there and serve them in the battlefield. And also my friend who are who were a Panjshiri in Kabul back in 2014. My doctor colleague, she doesn't had any father and brother. I was her only support through all this thin and thick, and she would cry to me. And finally, another sister from Australia is helping her. She will be leaving Kabul soon. And last night, my request to her was if in any way she can make to those women, who are pregnant or going through the labor. So it was very hard for us to get hold of each other because we were all scared. I'm scared for my Panjshiri sister. I'm scared for my Pashtun sister. For her, there would be no Panjshiri sister to help her assist in her baby birth. And I don't know. I'm really, from the past 48 hours, the happiness was when my friend cases were approved, and my sister from Australia told me that they will be soon leaving Afghanistan, and if I can just help them in filling their forms. And then the next, I remember, oh my God, those people are also like exposed to the same torture. So let's help them. So it's just really a kind of like, for me, it's hard to even keep a balance and eat or take showers or brush, because I'm just totally lost. And I don't know if it's a real picture or it's the Walking Dead I'm watching on a TV screen. And I hope it's all is a nightmare. I hope I wake up to a beautiful day and I think of it as a serial shown on the big screen or a show that I watch on my Netflix. But I don't know which one is true. Is it a reality or it's just kind of the imagination or a nightmare? Thank you so much.
It certainly is a traumatic picture that we're seeing, and because we're not seeing it to the extent that we need to be seeing it, and to the full light that we need to be seeing it in, I feel like platforms like this really help to raise that awareness. And in due course, there needs to be, this is a part of the process, perhaps towards that healing, towards that, and we're nowhere near that, right? It's still such an emergency situation. 14.2 million women, how are we going to get them all out of there? It's just not possible. One is doing what one can. These sisters that we have on the panels, they're doing what they can. And it's amazing work that you're doing, that you're moved to do. But the healing, and I'm familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate's work of the wisdom of trauma, and I take your point, Fuzia, and that is that it is at some point down the line. Let's help in the urgent relief work, and that you're all involved with. And Julia, turning to that point, earlier on, you spoke about the amazing news that you've received today, that has made your work so much easier. Can you just elaborate on what it is that you're doing, that you're actively involved with, and what news you have actually got today?
It's we're still, it's unconfirmed. If I respectfully would like to not talk about the mission and what's going on in the process, because I don't want to jeopardize the work there. We still don't know who's on our side, who's not. We still don't know what barrier and blockages we have in working with Zina, John, and Greater Change org, a nonprofit organization, and trying to help people in Afghanistan. So if you don't mind, I'd rather not talk about that initiative, because that was just on the back channel when I just got the message. But this is something we would like to, for now, keep at least, just between us, because if we're just afraid to jeopardize the operation, that's all. But other than that, I wanted to say this, there's some facts that came to mind that, before 2001 in Afghanistan, just to give you an idea of women in advancement, as you all know, like, women are just powerful all over the world. We women, we can accomplish things that a lot of men can't. We give birth and we get up and we walk and we feed our children. We go to work and I mean, this is all miraculous stuff, right? We mother, we give birth to life. It's miraculous. And for people to disrespect women and to keep them prisoners is just, it just means they're scared. These men-dominated testosterone injected, whatever they are. I hate to even call animals because animals are just great. I love animals. These people are just with their own agendas and unfortunately being brainwashed and kept in prisons and made to who they are, what they are today. Keeping Afghan women in prison and Afghan girls, not letting them schools. Afghan women, as for right now, they're saying they're only allowed to go to school under the Taliban governance to only until the 7th grade, and then that's it for them so far what we hear. So they're not allowed to obtain education beyond that. Afghanistan was a country where 50% of universities were Afghan women and girls before. We had 40% of all Afghan doctors female doctors. We had 70% of Afghan teachers were women. 30% of Afghan women were service workers. And that country turned into now Afghan girls not being able to go to school beyond 7th grade is what they're saying, is what their plan. And the spokesman for Taliban today, officially, I saw on the news, announced that, when they were asked about why women didn't get a chair or have a say in the cabinet, his response was, women don't need a necklace that is heavy on their neck. They can't take and carry the responsibility of such things. Women are there to give birth. So these are the kind of people we're talking about. Like, how do you even argue, negotiate, or reason with people like this in this day and age, in a society where we're talking about LGBT rights? We have these problems, and we shouldn't raise our voices to our governments. I mean, how can you see this and not do something about it? As a human being, set aside as a woman. It's hurtful.
Here's the other thing I would like to add to that is, if you're an Afghan and you're out there, you're in Canada, you're around the world, I don't care if you're in India, I don't care if you're in Pakistan, this would be a time for you to use what has God given you, your ability to communicate, use your platform, take the fake eyelashes out, take the filter out. This is a time you stand up for what is right and you use that voice. Because if you didn't do it now, then you just as might will stay silent for the rest of your life, because the day our life begins to end is the day we become silent about things that matters. Social media is one of the most powerful tool. It's a double-edged sword. You can use it, it could be harmful, but it could also be incredibly helpful. And when the Taliban are silencing people, the citizens in Afghanistan, and yeah, we'll get people out, the people that are their lives are in immediate danger, but we'll never be able to get all of them out. And at the end of the day, it will be the woman who's got 3 kids latched onto her legs and 1 on her breast getting feeded. And the wrinkles in her face is the stream that tells you the river of her pain and tells you what she's gone through. At the end of the day, we need to use our voice to tell her story. I had a woman from Afghanistan that told me, I may not be able to take my voice. I may not be able to get out of here and use my voice and never be able to use my voice the way you do. But I want you to take my voice with you. And I want you to speak and tell the world what they have done to us. And that's where we need to. The one thing that we have to do as Afghans, the ones that are across the US, across the Western society, around the world, but not on an Afghan soil, you don't live this nightmare. Those people do. You need to raise your voice, because the lone wolf will die, but the pack will survive. And you need to raise your voice and become united, one Afghan people, not Hazara, Tajik, Pashtun, whatever. You need to be one. And we ask the neighboring countries, people, women from Pakistan, women from India, and women from around the world that can come and give us the extended hand and help us in this nightmare. That is the other thing I want to point it out there. If the Hollywood branch is staying quiet, if the Bollywood, like Shah Rukh Khan, is the pride and joy of Afghanistan, Salman Khan, I remember this guy since I was a 4 years old little girl, and he still is on a flat screen, on a silver screen, playing the hero. You know what? Rocking the flag doesn't make you a hero. It's the actions of what you do makes you a hero. And there are people in Afghanistan on a daily basis being, atrocity happening on them. The one time that God's heart is broken the most is when you hurt the little ones, the children. And at the end of this, I have a poem that I would like to share, and it is actually the voice of children of war that I have actually written it when I was younger. And I feel like as a 5 years old little girl, we experienced this. Now I'm 34. I'm experiencing it all over again. Why? This is the one modern generation that we talk about LGBT rights. We have protests. We have all of this happening. The one country that actually tries to be bringing out the new woke movement is the country that handed over Afghan girls to the Taliban. And that I'm going to have a hard time forgiving.
Right. Thank you, Zinat. Every time you speak, I'm just overwhelmed by what you're saying and what you're conveying. It's heart-wrenching and heartbreaking, and I echo your call to all our brothers and sisters listening here to do what they can, to put whatever pressure they can on whatever authorities they can, and spread the word, and share this video to one and all, because it's being recorded. So we got some lip service when the Taliban came in, of course, that women's rights will be respected and blah-de-blah. They obviously said what they felt everyone wanted to hear, and what everyone did want to hear, but with sincerity and with some action to follow that will reflect that sentiment. Are we going to see any female representation in this so-called government? Angela, can I pass that to you?
Look, like I mentioned earlier, their spokesperson publicly announced that women are not capable of it, so that's why they are not going to, neither are they planning of any women representation. In fact, they keep announcing the public citizens as well not to leave the house because it's safer for them. Now, because they can't keep their own soldiers in check, it's safer for women to stay at home. So I mean, pathetic. They're announcing all this publicly. It's all out there in public. Of course, they're not planning to have women's representation. Every action they're taking speaks against it, including publicly announcing it. And not letting women educate themselves is to keep them in control, to keep women in check and control, and not let them learn and know what's going on in the world and speak for themselves or stand up, because that's how you suppress people, right? That's slavery for you, modern day slavery in Afghanistan.
I would also like to add very quickly, if I may, that you asked before what the lived experiences of women in Afghanistan. So I think two quick things I would like to share. One thing that was widely reported in mainstream media was that they had gotten rid of the Ministry of Women's Affairs when they declared their new government. I think that the half truth, they didn't actually, well, they're not telling the full story. So they got rid of the Ministry of Women's Affairs, and they replaced it with a mockery called the Ministry of Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. And this comes from the training they get in Pakistani madrasas that basically describes women as a corrupting force that seduce men away from God. So that gives you some idea of how they view women. And one simple story, I mean, we've heard a lot about some really graphic and devastating atrocities, but just simple daily life and how that's been affected. A story that a friend of many of ours on this panel, Sahia Sarah, she shared a story of a friend of hers in Kabul who's a singer. Now we know that artists and performers are of course under specific threat because there's no music allowed in the streets. There's no, any of that. So she had gone into a closet because she really wanted to sing, but she was so deathly afraid of someone from the street hearing her that she went into a closet to sing to our friend. So along with the major atrocities, it's also just like think something as simple and beautiful as that being impacted.
Yeah, the cultural devastation is of course a whole on another level, and to a world where you can't express yourself artistically, creatively. It's here in the West, it's inconceivable, right? It's just an inconceivable world that these women have inherited, and these men and these families and these children, this next generation. What can we do here? What would you like us to do? If I can just put it that bluntly, what change do you want to see? What are the steps? Okay, let me ask you this. What are the steps that you want to see happen? The realistic steps that you feel that that our governments can take in Afghanistan? Can you just walk us through what that might look like?
I'll go if no one else wants to speak right now, but maybe I'll start. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do, right? The ask here is not only to, you know, invade Afghanistan again, and not that. No, what we're trying to do here is be a voice for the Afghan people, is telling our people that have a voice, the powerful communities, networks, the Shah Rukh Khans, the Bollywoods, the Hollywoods, the politicians, to go to United Nations. They have that power. I may not. We may as individuals not. Those people do. Use that power, use that network to go and ask what we're doing to interfere with the Taliban's suppression of majority of Afghan people, if not all. Tell them to set, since we can't get rid of them right now, and it's not as easy, it may take time, hopefully we'll do something about it, but meanwhile, to tell them to set restrictions on them as to how they treat humans, how they treat minority groups, how they treat women, to tell them to grant the basic human rights to Afghan people, to tell them to let people vote and elect, to create a democratic society for the people. That may be far-fetched, but to stand for all that, if that's the minimum they can do right now, all they can do is I understand some of these people are scared to not stand up because they may be scared of being targeted, or I mean, they're out in the public world, right? They're celebrities, they're politicians, but they can do more than just talk to United Nations and ask them for initiatives to be taken for Afghan refugees, for whether it's visa processing or the ones that are fleet, whether it's the ones that are stuck, to provide a safe home for them throughout the whole countries of the world, whether to offer a hand of help, whether to send aid, whether to start fundraising. Shah Rukh Khan alone can just in one day probably raise millions of dollars for Afghan people if he wanted to. What is he doing sitting there? Just him alone from his network. And it's not like money is tight in these circles. We all know that. It's the little things you can do that can help on the greater scheme of things. And then from the politicians, I would ask that, for God's sake, put pressure on this regime. Put pressure on this regime if you're not taking them out anytime soon.
Can I pass that question around the panel? Tatiana, over to you.
Oh, essentially, I was putting some things in the chat. There's lots we can do, right? So there's a link I just put in the chat for a link tree that has vetted donation links so that the resources can get to people on the ground and not have to be filtered through the Taliban. Because I know what a lot of people are trying to do in putting together humanitarian relief aid packages is we know that even if the Taliban takes 60%, at least 40% will get to people, but these donation links are helpful. There's also the call campaigns for representatives. There's petitions you can sign. There are letters that are pre-written that you can send to representatives in different governments. There's also a website I would like to highlight, Zinat's amazing website, greater-change.org. And also, with the help of a friend who's amazing, I've set up a website called unitedafghanistan.com, which is going to serve as a clearinghouse of we're going to try to make it like both like news and good news sources to get like information from the ground. All of the things that I just discussed, and we're also going to be working on an open letter so that the signatories are all public and international. Hopefully we can get some organizations and some notables and celebrities, and be able to use that to send that to our representatives. There's also like Twitter storms aimed at the UN Security Council. But one of the, I think, main thrusts of what we're looking for is absolutely no legitimization of terrorists as government, number one. And yeah, I think that would be like the first and most main thing, is that nobody legitimizes that government, and that Afghanistan is given a chance to breathe and be self-deterministic in some way. But yeah, that open letter will be on the United Afghanistan website soon. So thank you.
And
Great.
what I would like to add to that is don't forget them. Don't forget those people. Don't forget the little girls. I have a little girl right now that I'm keeping in a safe location, and she kept calling me every morning. And she says, Halajan, don't forget me. I know you're busy. That's powerful, because here's the other thing. A very, very wise man once told me, in order to understand someone, you must understand their pain. And if you could relate to them on a pain level, what does that take? Let me see if I could break that down for you. Imagine yourself living under the Taliban reign for about 24 hours, suffocated, captured, completely handcuffed. Anything you can do is taken away from you. And that, if you could truly imagine yourself and empathize on a level of pain, then you will start to do something. Otherwise, this topic will be dead in the next 2 weeks or so. At least that's what the mainstream media wants us to do. To the point they're censoring posts from Facebook and Twitter sometime. But what I want to say is, don't forget them. The world wants you to forget those girls. The world wants you to forget about that little boy whipped and bullet in the back of his head on the streets of Kunduz the first 3 days that this whole news break out. And accountability. When, integrity matters. When you have a government comes in and they say, I'm going to say Z, but I will actually do the A. That's the government that we're supposed to trust and believe in. I'm not saying every country government is this honest person, but what I am saying is the Taliban walked in speaking one language, but their action demonstrated another language. So who are they fooling? Us? Because we are not fooled by that. But our government has been definitely fooled by that, at least part of them. You use your platform. You have things and tools that those little girls will never get a chance to have if they live under this reign. They will never have the chance to get on a video like this and express their feelings and the fire that's burned across their chest. They will never be able to get it out. Trauma, PTSD, I got over trauma. You know how? By classical music, counseling, and Indian music. You take music away from me, I will probably have a heart attack. These people can't even sing a song. My son was NICU, preemie baby. When we were in the NICU, they were saying to play classical music, play Chopin and Beethoven Moonlight Sonata, because these are the kind of music that will develop their brain. Music is another language that you can use and express yourself. The fact that they can't even do that, imagine that. So Afghanistan has become the biggest chain of, it's basically like a huge solitary confinement prison cell, and we have all these individuals in there. She may be looking invisible in her veil. She may look invisible, but don't let her be one, because you can become the voice for her and you can become the ambassador for her. And as they say, have mercy on us. What have we done? I hear their cries every day. I hear if you guys want to know how you can help on the ground, We have, because of security purposes, we can't share every single item, but we can directly email and share with you how you can help one family. Now, soon winter will hit. Not only these villages were set on fire, their houses were burned to the ground. There was a little boy, I'll never forget his face. We were getting them out of there. This little boy sees a military guy at the airport in front of the gate of the airplane. And he kept saying, "Uncle, they burned everything. They burned my grandfather's photo. They burned everything." It was like he was telling the one who was in charge in a uniform. He knew he was going to be safe to tell this guy. And he was talking like that, using his voice and saying they burned everything. So when you have a family going back into the city of Kunduz, Badakhshan, even now Panjshir Valley will be burned to the ground, obviously, if they take a full control of it. These people have winter coming. They're not just going to starve. They're going to freeze, because people think Afghanistan is this desert with beautiful mountains and up in the northern part of Afghanistan, and it snows like no one's business. Raise your voice. It is your problem. And if you say it is not my problem, then you self-check.
Thank you, Zeenat. I just want to ask that these links are posted, please, to Facebook, to the IIW site, because we'll lose them as soon as we close this meeting. So all these valuable links, please save them onto your hard drives, onto your social media sites, and share. I'm blown away. I don't know what else to ask about. You've given such a clear, too clear depiction of the situation. And I'm aware that I had a couple of co-hosts, and I apologize to them for not giving them a voice. So can I just hand over to Sarika and Umesh if you have any questions to ask, and then to the floor to our listeners if you have any questions to ask our panel.
I do not have a question, but so much of pain to listen to all the stories and what's going on. I mean, I'm abreast with the news, what's going on, and but it's very sad to see what's happening, and all the good work and all the best, and I hope we can help in whatever possible way we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarika. Umesh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm been listening to this heart-wrenching stories, and I do believe that these savages cannot listen the language of peace. That one, women need to rise up. They need to take arms. Okay, they need to practice martial arts for self-defense, and they need to raise arms. It is like this. You need to do that. Otherwise, I see a very bleak future. So, because I'm coming from the land of Mahatma Gandhi and whatever it is, but while peace can be only negotiated with humans, and they are worse than animals. So, thank you.
Thanks, Umesh. Do we have any questions from our listeners? I can ask if you want to chat, type them into the chat window.
I have a request from the Indian sisters. As I mentioned that the process of P2 immigration to US, they will conduct that via a third country. Any country like India and maybe Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. This is the urgently processed Afghan eligible for P2. The designation within Afghanistan and through US embassies in third countries. So is there any way if we can make a platform in India for this temporarily settlement of Afghan refugee? Because if they would settle it in Karachi or in Pakistan, since we share border with them, unfortunately, with with the people that nobody want to be around their children, but now we are an unfortunate nation that we are sharing border with a country like Pakistan. So once the Taliban open this, airports, and maybe the flight would start taking off from Kabul airport, I hope so. If not, but still there is a way if we can talk to Indian government in India or some NGOs who can lift the Afghan who are eligible for this P1, priority 1 designation under the U.S. Refugee Admission Program, USRAP. So if we can lift them to India, and from India, their work should go into the process for the immigration to US, because that way a lot of the activists that I work with, I hope my phone is coming. So a lot of activists that I work with are the one who spoke against Pakistan and the atrocities of Pakistani agencies, ISIs in Panjshir and currently and in past in Afghanistan. So we are further predisposing or exposing them to danger and violence in Pakistan in case if Pakistan get this new project for Afghan who has been temporarily displaced, the Afghan displaced people or Afghan displaced refugee to Afghanistan, to Pakistan. So that will be a big contribution of Indian sister to the cause, to the life that they would contribute to save, and also the women who, for whom we can save some trauma. Thank you.
Thank you, Fawzia. We have Sumit who wants to ask a question. Sumit, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, before I start, I would first like to thank and appreciate IIW for hosting this wonderful talk and a heart-wrenching talk, wherein our Afghan sisters are able to share their pains and the reality of Afghanistan with all of us here and with the larger audience on Facebook Live. Before I also take it forward with my question and observations, I would just like to make a small statement to Fawzia ji that Indian government has changed the process, but we are accepting refugees from Afghanistan. And earlier in our visa office in Afghanistan, there was an attack and the Taliban people had attacked and they had taken over the passports with the stamps. So Indian government and the intel agencies and the security agencies are a bit concerned, and the passports on which there are sticker visas have been cancelled, but the same people can apply through the online platform, and I will share the links with Rashmi ji and others so that they can share it with you all. It is available online. You can make an application as per the the UN regulations and the norms. A verification check will be done that they are allowed as per the UN norms to come in as refugees. And Indian government is going an extra mile because Afghanistan is technically our neighbor. We share 160 kilometers border with Afghanistan right now. Indeed, that is in bordering POK, which is illegally under the control of Pakistan. But technically, as per the UN resolution of 1948 as well, it is our sovereign territory, though Pakistan has not vacated it. So from that perspective, we are definitely neighbors. And Indian government will definitely go all out. That is what we understand from all the interactions with the people in the know in Indian establishment. So you don't have to worry about it. You can start, you can access that statements and the website also. And you can make an application. You can ask the people in Afghanistan to make an application, and they, Indian government will take it in the process as per the support of the and inputs from the intelligences and the security agencies. Having said that, that was just to clarify Fawzia ji's comments. But I think what we have seen, be it in Kashmir in 1989-90 to now what we are seeing in we saw in with the Yezdi women in Syria and elsewhere, to now what we are seeing with the Afghan sisters in Afghanistan. We have seen a brutality which cannot be expressed in words. And my heart goes for all my sisters over there. What I'm trying to understand, and probably someone can throw more light, because in India there is a huge section including leaders like political leaders, mainstream political leaders like Mehbooba Mufti, Farooq Abdullah, and renowned poets and journalists who are all backing Afghanistan and Taliban. Very importantly, they have even applauded the statements of Taliban, wherein Taliban has said that we are giving equal rights to women, and women will be allowed to work, and all those kind of statements. Political leaders like Mehbooba Mufti and Farooq Abdullah went to the extent of saying that if Sharia law is applied in the right context, then women will not be facing any problems in Afghanistan. So my question to my sisters here is, I would like to understand from you whether this is a right interpretation, or do you agree with them that there is no problem for Afghan women in wake of the Sharia law being implemented in Afghanistan by the Taliban, or you have a different view? If yes, your interpretation. I am open to understand from you all.
I would like to answer that. So the question was, is that the Taliban are saying that the women will not have a problem and have equal rights? Is that it?
That is what Taliban has said, and that is how it is interpreted in India by the political leaders like Mehbooba Mufti and Farooq Abdullah, and some other Indian journalists like Rana Ayub or Arfa Khanam Sherwani and all those. Yes.
That is like saying, would Hitler ever accept a Jewish person? It's almost laughable. There are no pacts between lions and wolves. Those were direct words from the Valley of Panjshir that came in. They have said one thing and demonstrated other. No women will ever have the right under the Taliban reign. They will say this to get safe face. But if that's what they wanted to do, why have they closed down lines of communication? Why have they been whipping women? I mean, can you imagine getting beaten by a water hoe or a rubber or a pipe while you're trying to just protest for your divine rights? That's it. As a human, divine rights. They're not saying, let me wear micro mini skirt, let me put my hair up, and let me dress, and let me go in a fashion show. They're saying, let me live. Don't chain me up. And if the Taliban are telling you that, that's like saying, is the boogeyman in your dream going to terrorize you or and help you out? It's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. And they will never give women the right. And the past 3 weeks have demonstrated it. The past 3 weeks has shown it. I have seen Taliban literally hitting a defenseless woman in the back of the head while she's trying to get into the south gate of international airport in Kabul. They will try to tell you one thing but demonstrate something else. When you have men journalists getting beaten to absolutely flushes of skin coming from the back of them, I don't know. I mean, somebody's lying, right? Either my common sense has disappeared. Is that me? Who is that?
I believe that was Fazia John's phone. I don't know.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, no, the Taliban are saying one thing and demonstrating another, and it's almost wasted to waste your time debating whether the Taliban will ever give, the women rights in that country or not. And something that Tatiana brought up in the beginning and said, hey, they just because the Taliban says they're Muslim and they're doing this doesn't mean all Muslim are like the Taliban. Let me tell you, just because the Taliban says they're from Afghanistan, that does not make them Afghani. They're Afghans. You want to get behind them? go talk to Ahmed Massoud. We want to get behind them, talk to the ones who have not let an enemy lay their foot on the hills or in the valley of Panjshir. They did that with the Soviets and completely ambushed them from 1996 to 2000 until Ahmed Shah Massoud was assassinated by the Taliban. They have lied enough where they have held fake meeting and blew up someone to pieces. Now his son is carrying out the legacy of his father. A couple of days ago, I got a call that I saw online that the Taliban were spreading false news, telling people the valley of Panjshir was completely surrendered to them. Well, when I called my contact and asked, they said there are no pacts between lions and wolves. Okay, and that is the true Afghan you're hearing from, saying not under my watch, not happening under my under my presence, not until I have one little bit of blood left in my body. That is the Afghan. Every person, like there's this stigma out there that when you talk about the Taliban, they say, oh, the majority of the Taliban are Pashtuns. They're the terrorists from Afghanistan. No. Let's go back to that. And the Taliban has demonstrated sexist, xenophobia. They have demonstrated racism to its last core. I know that because I'm getting a Hazara minority group out of Afghanistan as we are speaking. And so when you say that a specific group of people are not welcome here, and then you demonstrate hatred and bigotry towards them and physical violence, who would believe the words out of their mouth? And if anybody does, then they are either naive or they're siding with the Taliban. They're trying to make us believe it, or they fooled themselves and genuinely believe that the Taliban are telling the truth.
Thank you, Zeenat. This is a good perspective on understanding how the politicians and the journalists, the so-called secular liberal journalists in India, are trying to either cover up the misdeeds and the crimes of Taliban, or trying to show people that Taliban will probably do all good things in the future, and in a way try to build a positive environment and an image for Taliban. Thank you very much for this.
And I
Maybe-
would like to comment on it too.
Sure.
Yeah, as I've mentioned in many of my interviews, that the Sharia law you talk about is how much Afghan women would be happy with it, or be pleased with it. I've given an example of it with when Anas Haqqani was on CNN 18, and I was there and giving him a hint that, hey, currently in the countries where Sharia law has been into practice is Saudi Arabia. And also the one, the chairman for life, the Xi Jinping in China, which if they will assign some person like Amir al-Mu'minin, let's suppose this is the chairman for life for this particular Islamic or Sharia, the country who's be run under Sharia law. So Saudi is one example, whether it's India, whether it's America, or whether it's European country, they have really good relationship with it. And almost like 30% of American institution is run by the Saudi student who are studying here, because Saudi government is capable to pay the tuition for these institutions. And now, if you're bringing a Sharia law, which is the model is there in Saudi Arabia, and then the one party the chairman, Amir al-Mu'minin, yeah, I can say Afghan women might not have any problem with it, because in Afghanistan, 99.99% are covering. They're very kind of humble when it comes to dressing. And for them, the Islam, the way they practice is more spiritual and practical than the Islam Muslim women practice in Turkey or in West or in America. And that might be even true with India too, the way they practice Dharma or Islam or any other religion, whether it's been Christianity or Sikhs community or Buddhist community or Hindu community or Muslim, they're looking most they're looking at the spiritual aspect of it. So a woman in Afghanistan or in the society is kind of thinking of that bigger picture. The ultimate goal is to get spiritual enlightenment and be grateful for whatever blessing God has blessed them. But here the question is that who is, kind of putting the software in Taliban's mind? Whose mind is behind them? It's Pakistan, who have a Hira Mandi in their country, and it's Turkey, who has nude beaches and the pork, wine, everything is haram there, they're halal there. And also, I've been to Turkey, I've seen women, I've seen the nude beaches, I've seen the openness of their culture. But then when it comes to Afghan people whose soul, heart is very much, I would say, Buddhist, they're very much committed to this religion. And they're really looking forward to the spiritual aspect of it because they want to raise their son and daughter full of humility, maybe giving them values that any parents in India give them. The parents are actively involved in raising a daughter apart from giving them education. So in Afghan society, the bomb or the terrorism or the fascism has been supported by Turkey, supported by Pakistan, is supported by China, and they would never let even Taliban to make a country or a constitution or an environment for their citizen as it is for people in Saudi Arabia. If you see in Saudi Arabia, 5 million Indians are currently employed there. They're really contributing to their economy. They're very actively engaged in their social life. And also, if you see on different campuses in America, Indian students and Saudi students are together in different groups. Neither an Indian is prejudiced toward a Muslim if they wear hijab, nor a hijabi Muslim female is prejudiced toward a Hindu or any other religion. The problem is the bad politics that has been played with us. It's our neighbors. Again, I would say it's the power hungry or the power mongers nation named Turkey who are making orthogols and spending billions of money on this stupid cereal and actually making the youth in Pakistan or in Afghanistan to do this kind of romanticism with the orthogol Ghazi who were nothing from scratch. They steal people land, they kill minorities, and they're finally making up this khilafah. So this is what we should fight with. For India, for the world's peace and safety and security, the problem is not Islam, the problem is not Afghan community, the problem is not Muslim community in India, the problem is the country who are after Israel, which is Turkey. The problem is Pakistan, which is exploiting people and opening 50,000 madrasas and exploiting innocent orphan children. So this is the time that world should gather and make safe foster cares, whether it's in India, whether it's in America. They should adapt children. And even I myself is planning to make a foster cares in India to nurture and groom some Afghan kids who can be the future generation raised in India for the region against the extremist fascists who have been nurtured and currently under training in Pakistani madrasa. So yeah, I would say again, Afghan women, they have no problem with hijab, Islam, Sharia, because they never do anything which they in the long or short term would pay a big price for it. Like they're not engaging in adultery, they're not drinking wines, they're not doing anything that Islam prohibited, because their core fundamentals and their foundation is based on Eastern values. And if you see, the Eastern value is what Indian women and what Afghan women they hold it so dear to them. So that's why I'm saying the problem might not be Islam or the way Islam is practiced among peaceful Muslim community. The problem is the fascist country like Turkey, Pakistan, and China. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to follow up with that, what you just said, and I would like to ask you, so are you saying that because the Taliban is creating cruelty and atrocity against women, specifically in Afghanistan, let's just start with the women, right? Girls that are as young as 10 years old under Sharia law, they're allowed to marry a 55 years old man, I guess. You're saying that's because Turkey is allowing that? That's because, but if that is the case, then why is Istanbul, Turkey, not actually demonstrating this law to their own people? And that's like almost saying that the Taliban shouldn't be held accountable for the way they demonstrate what they have demonstrated. And that's what my understanding is. Yeah, we blame Pakistan because Pakistan was the first place that was hosting terrorism in their country from 9/11. The time that Afghanistan was invaded by George W. Bush's administration, USAID, US funds were being, trillions of dollars were being sent into Pakistan. And then in the meanwhile, they were saying, we are fighting quote unquote terrorism. But what were they doing? They were hosting Osama bin Laden in their capital city. I was a refugee in Pakistan. One tiny little bedroom that was 800 square footage was 700 kaldar. That's when I was a little toddler. That's when I was a little baby. Now I'm a grown person. So yeah, when a Pakistani person looks at you and say, what does Pakistan gain by having unstable Afghanistan and refugees in their country? Economy boosting, jobs happening left and right. Afghans will go there, they will scrub floors if they have to provide food and all of these things. And on top of that, you have the world watching, the humanitarian world giving trillions of dollars into Pakistan, the UN, the United Nations, all these massive nonprofits that are like Titanic in the world of NGOs, giving money to aid work for the Pakistani refugees that are going into Pakistan from Afghanistan. But let's go back to the beginning of what you just said.
Okay,
are you telling me?
Look. When Malala Yousafzai or Jhansi Ki Rani or Karima Baloch, the current Baloch right activist who was assassinated in Canada, if you see in Hindu mythology, the Sita Ma, Ram's wife, was 12-year old. Not every Hindu is giving their daughter to marriage at age 12. Yes, that might be the truth with Aisha and the prophet wife, but not every Afghan or Muslim family is giving their daughters to a 50-year-old. Okay, what I was saying.
Then you should ask that question from the Afghan girl that is married.
I am an Afghan girl. I'm Afghan girl. I'm here.
No, you're actually here. You're actually advocating on the religion. Nobody's talking about the religion, ma'am.
No, I'm not advocating about the religion. Okay.
Then what are you talking about?
Just let me speak, so you can hear me well, loud and clear. What I'm saying, the mentality is the people who exploit resources, who exploit vulnerable community. And they're doing it politically. They're doing it when they're standing in United Nations, calling on Arab world to destroy Israel, calling on dreaming to be the Khilafah or Khalifa again, while the Khilafah themselves were running brutals under their in their basements. So an Afghan community, they must be Muslims, but their foundations, their fundamental, their principles is very much Buddhist. It's very much Hindus in their values. They're very much Orthodox, or I would say confining to their territory like Hindu. If you see the India or the Hindu regions, which was all Southeast Asia, they never invaded anyone. It was the Mughal, it was the Ghoris or Ghaznavi who invaded us, and we had the right to determine to save and defend ourselves. If there is a Malala Yousafzai coming out and fighting for the motherland. There was a Jhansi Ki Rani too, who came out and fought against the British invasions of her motherland, India. There is still a daughter like
I think we are passing. I wanna cut you through because I have to go to another meeting, and I think we're going in a circle of this philosophies about religion. Right now, we're talking about Afghanistan. We're talking about, no one in here is saying that the Islam religion is allowing this to happen. We're talking about a group of extremists who are coming in and oppressing their injustice knee in the back of every
people or
Afghan
countries
women
behind
and
these
children.
extremists. That's what I'm saying. There is countries
Lakshmi, can we now
who may not let these extremists to practice that fundamentalism in their country, but rather they're leashing them free on their neighbors. That's what I'm saying here. Pakistan would never let Taliban to practice what they're practicing in Kabul or to bomb Lahore the way they're bombing Panjshir. But they do practice, they do train, they do come, they do rape 300K Bangladeshi women in 1971. They were Muslim brother who were raping their own sisters. The same Muslim brothers are raping their daughters in Waziristan. That's what I'm saying. Pakistan
okay, ladies,
Fazia, we have to actually wind up. Can we have a conclusion, please? It would be best interest. We will have a follow-up session as well. We know the emotions are right. We really support the Afghan women. We empathize with that cause. Seriously, I'm the person who's much more affected when I hear the news in the clubhouse which Tatiana runs. She's running relentlessly for 8 days. It is really heart-wrenching for me also. And we have consumed so much of things. Right now, we have to work on the action. We have to amplify our causes. It's not the time to be in history or something like that. Let's see the future course of the action. How can we do that? Strengthen the hands of Tatiana, strengthen the hand of Angela. She is working, we are working relentlessly. Anyone, okay, let us go with that feeling. Definitely we will have a follow-up session as well. And I would like someone to wrap up the session, what they have gained in this. Tatiana, can you do that right now, please?
Thank you, Umesh. I just think that it's important, whatever differences we may have with one another, or other groups that are coming together to act for Afghanistan, I think the important thing to remember here is that we are all committed to action and in joining in our shared humanity to act for the people of Afghanistan. And so in centering the lives on the ground right now that are desperately hoping to see another day, I would hope that whatever ideological differences may occur can be left at the door, because it's not about those differences right now. It's about uniting as humanity.
Thank you, Tatiana. It was really great hearing from you. Lakshmi, please carry on.
I'd just like to thank everyone for being here and expressing themselves. And we're all on the same side, right? That's the takeaway from this. And we're all doing what we can and our bit. And this platform has raised awareness amongst whoever's here and those listeners on Facebook. And I hope that can be rebounded, that can be shared. And I'll certainly be looking at these links and continuing my research more and helping the cause. I'd like to stay in touch with all of you about this work. Really, yeah. I can't thank you enough for everything you're doing on behalf of our sisters and brothers in Afghanistan, and it's amazing work, and it has to continue. And powerful words resonate for me. Don't forget. So thank you.
Lakshmi, we would also like to contribute donation. So I would like Tatiana or anybody to share what and how they're helping the refugees in UK or in India, if they are connected to any organization which is collecting donation or any form of gifts in kinds or anything helpful. We would love to join that, support that initiative. Yeah.
Sorry, guys, my Wi-Fi dropped and I don't know what happened. So I had to reconnect.
We're just wrapping up, Angela. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and just thanking everyone for being here. And we want to continue spreading the awareness and for fundraising campaigns. So what's the best way to do that then, would you say, Tatiana?
So I just put a link in the chat that is all the donation sites for the link tree. And there's, of course, Zinat Jan's fantastic organization. She's been helping refugees for years and years, and that is greater-change.org. And so
yeah, we have fundraising going on right now on DonorSee, but also if you go directly on the website and if you put in the bottom a little note, one of the things that we do, we want to make sure that the donors' wishes are being fulfilled. And if you say, I am giving $200 for 3 months of grocery for a family in Afghanistan, we will make sure that gets there, 100% gets there. And we will have follow up with individual emails and also newsletter that we will be showing photos, pictures, and evidence of here's what we have delivered and here's where the need is. Right now, we are trying to get food into one of the valleys, and we're working around, our team is tirelessly working around the clock to make that happen. We just did food distribution in the Kunduz province, and our goal is to reach 2,000 families. But we with $25,000, we can feed 150 families, and it also it's the way to go. And we also support individual families that are within the neighboring countries like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and including Albania and Kosovo. But those are directly such as getting them visas, getting them, food and housing programs that they can stay in. Because once they're there, all of a sudden they have another thing to face, which is what do we do with our lives, and get them back to become independent, but take back what was taken from them, which is the independency of their lives and the control of their lives. Those are the things that we're helping with. So if you go on our website, or you want to start an individual fundraising on Facebook, or you want to send a check in the mail, we will make sure that the money gets where it's supposed to go. And I'm dedicated to this no matter what happens. I have spent money literally out of my own pocket to help people. I don't mind doing that. I've done humanitarian work for 7 years and I have not taken a dime. And so that being said, we got that going on. Just be careful when you're donating out there, make sure you know where your money's going. And one of our number one rule is that we have the transparency and the honesty with our donors to make sure they know where their monies are going. And then if you have any connection in India, that families that need help, reach out to, info@greater-change.org email address, and let us know how we can assist with Greater Change. We can assist that family and get them to start getting on their own 2 feet and live their life in harmony wherever they are.
Angela, definitely we would get associated with you, and anything regarding this, you can get connected with me in India. We would raise awareness campaign funds and any other things. We will be the voice, and IIW is really going to take this cause to a very new level. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your dedication and taking this time. I want to just individually thank everyone that took time from their lives to do this. And by doing that, I know that you guys have just as much as passion about this topic and making it your problem, making it your business to say something. And you may not gain that 1 hour back, but you're doing things that are including other people's lives that are in danger, living under the umbrella of oppression and, atrocity. And that being said, I want to thank every one of you for taking time and then inviting me to this. there will be time I will get passionate about the topic and I will debate, but with all the respect and everything, with all the, later I may call you individually and apologize. But there are things that I fundamentally believe, and I will not back down on sharing my opinion.
Thank you, Zinat. We need that passion.
Yeah, we have some multiple disruptions which were happening during the course of the meeting, around 5 to 6, which were thwarted, and we have also, I took the screenshot as well, and we have posted on the Facebook page also. Everything has been documented.
I also wanted to thank everyone here, you guys, and your whole beautiful country that I love. I love your culture, and your people have always been a friend of Afghan people, and we won't forget that. And you guys individually, thank you for taking your time for sharing this with your people on your platform. It means more than you think.
Yeah, and to echo that, you know, as a little girl, I learned Hindi language before I could speak Farsi language. So sari jahan se acha Hindustan hamara.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Superb way to end this show. Superb line. That was also said by somebody very famous, Prime Minister, past Prime Minister. But anyway, Lakshmi, great hosting as usual. You're an asset to IIW. Umesh Agarwal, thank you so much for being part of IIW, and all the ladies here. Let's grow stronger and strengthen each other. And that's what IIW is all about. Take care, everybody. Keep in touch. We will come back again only at Inspiring Indian Women. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.